Hey guys, so I'm back with another video, and today in this video I have two things to actually get through. First, this is obviously going to be my April wrap-up, and second, I have a really cool readathon announcement. If you've been following me on Twitter, then you probably already know, so you can skip through this to where I start talking about the books I read if you want. But I was approached by Michaela over at my bookshelf to be one of the co-hosts for her brand new readathon called Sobathon, and I am so freaking pumped for this. The other co-hosts for this readathon are Michaela from my bookshelf, Becca from Becca and the Books, Rocky from Blonde with a Book, Sam from Samantha Reading, and Katie from, I know she has a YouTube channel and I think it's Beasley, but she doesn't really use it anymore, but she has a blog, which I'll find. I'll put all the links down below. You should totally go check all of them out because they're amazing people. The whole point of this readathon is, if you can't guess from the title of the readathon, is to read all of the cry-worthy books on your TBR, which this is going to be interesting considering it takes a lot to make me cry. I can count on my hand the number of books that I've actually cried at. I'll tear up at a lot of books, but to actually make me cry, it takes a lot. So I'm interested to see if I will actually find some books that will make me cry. This readathon is going to run from May 21st to May 27th. I hope you can join along with us. We have created a Twitter, which is at Sobathon, which I'll put right here, so you can go follow us if you want. We also have a hashtag that we're using, which is hashtag Sobathon as well, so tweet at us your TBRs, any questions. I think we're going to be holding reading sprints as well. I know I probably will when I find some time, depending on my work schedule, since I'm out for the summer and I'm also taking 2 summer classes, so we'll see. But yeah, for this we actually have 5 challenges. Obviously, you don't have to do the challenges if you don't want to. I personally just really like challenges and readathons, trying to, fit books to that instead of just picking books like I normally do since I'm a mood reader. So the 5 challenges are: read a book you've been putting off because you know it's going to make you emotional, which I know we all have a crap ton of books like that, whether they're books that other people have said have made them cry because they're sad. Adam Silvera. And or that last book in a series that you just don't want to read because it's the end and you're not ready for that heartbreak. Read a book that will make you cry from happiness. Reread a book that destroyed your emotions. I have so many books for this. I have books that destroy my emotions, but not a bunch of books that make me physically cry. But am I ready to relive through some of that trauma? I don't know. We'll find out. Read a book that's under 300 pages. This is always a good challenge for readathons. I love this, but it always kind of pushes me because literally almost every book I own is over 300 pages. So, and the final challenge is to read the group book, which we have picked The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I know some other people have already read this. This is a new release if you haven't heard about it. I really don't know much about it except our main character's mother committed suicide and she believes her mother was turned into some kind of bird, and she goes to Taiwan to form a relationship with her grandparents and try to find her mother. I got to hear her speak on a panel while I was at North Texas Teen Book Festival, which I have a vlog for that just went up Monday, so I'll link it up here if you want to watch. It's literally 3.5 minutes and there's books. But I got to hear her speak, and I didn't realize this, but I guess this also has magical realism in it, which I'm super excited to see. But I've also heard this is kind of like a Sobfest book, so that's one of the main reasons why we chose this book. Also, we talked about this, and you are allowed to double, triple, whatever you want. If you can hit all 5 of these challenges in one book, which I don't think you can. If you can, hit the other 4 challenges in one book, go ahead. Doubling up just makes it better for everybody, especially if you're a really busy schedule. Reading 5 books in a week is a lot. So I hope you guys can join us because it's gonna be a lot of fun and we're all gonna cry tears together. Well, maybe not me because I don't have a heart, but it'll be fun. So come join us, follow us on the Twitter, use the hashtag, let me know in the comments if you're gonna participate because I would love to know. I think the week before the readathon starts, we'll all be posting our TBRs as well as recommendations for the different challenges if you need help kind of brainstorming what to read. So yeah, anyways, now that announcement is out of the way, it's time to move on to my April wrap-up. Now, I still read quite a bit in April, although most of it is audiobooks because I have just had the shittiest month of April. It's been a really bad, like, mental health month. Like, I've had a lot of trouble, like, getting myself out of bed and going to classes and doing my classwork. I've turned a lot of papers in late, and I'm just like, I don't care. And so I haven't really read a lot. I really haven't wanted to do anything except lay in bed and stare at the ceiling. So, yeah, but I got through some audiobooks because I walked to class from my apartment to and from every day, so I've been listening to audiobooks, so yeah. In the month of April, I DNF'd 2 books, I read 5 books, and I'm in the middle of like 5 books as well, so let's jump into this. First off, let's talk about my DNFs. The first book I DNF'd is Broken by C.J. Loyens. I've been trying to kind of read this for like a couple of months. I actually put it down because I'm reading a different ebook right now, and I just have no desire to pick it back up, so I'm going ahead and DNFing it. I've only read like 8% of it, but it's not for me, so yeah. And the other book I DNF'd was Penin by Vladimir Nabokov. This is actually the guy who wrote Lolita. This was a required read for one of my classes. I didn't finish it. I didn't like his writing style. It was very boring, and I only read 120 pages out of this. And it's sad. This poor guy's life is so depressing, and I didn't want to read about it anymore. Now on to the books that I actually finished. 2 of these I probably should have actually DNF'd, but I was just like, I kind of gotta know what happened. So the first one I have is When the Wind Blows by James Patterson. I'm a huge fan of Maximum Ride. I read it as a kid. I'm planning on rereading it this year. This duology, which consists of When the Wind Blows and The Lake House, is similar to Maximum Ride. This is where he first got the idea, and then he spurred it off into a different series. The main character's name is Max, but they're not the same person. And yeah, so this follows, I don't know if you should classify this as science fiction, but I did because there's like human genetics modifications, which is sciencey. So I'm going with like a low science fiction maybe. Am I wrong? I don't know. So my mom's a huge James Patterson fan too, so she owns a lot of these books. I borrowed these from her. And we follow our main character Max, who is part avian, part human. And so yeah, she's got wings, she can fly, and she escapes from this awful school place and comes in contact with a veterinarian named Franny O'Neill and an FBI agent named Kit something. You know, it's whatever, and it's their adventure on trying to take down these bad guys and meeting the rest of the flock. I can see parallels to this, like with Max and the flock. Like, there are some characters that sound a lot like the characters of Maximum Ride, but I prefer the characters from Maximum Ride, but it's been a really long time since I've read them, so like I don't want to like say for sure they're better. I'm not a fan of this. First off, I listened to this on audiobook, and I didn't like the narrator. She was very annoying, and like I just couldn't. And there were just scenes in this book that like, I don't know if maybe like it's just the story, or maybe it's just James Patterson, I don't know, but like there's one scene, because Kit is staying in a cabin on Franny's property. This also takes place out in kind of the mountains of Colorado, and he's like, thinks she's like up to something because her husband died a couple years ago. He was killed, and he thinks she might have had, her husband had something to do with the stuff at the school, and like he thinks Franny might know about it. And he's like standing outside, and it's dark, and she's like in her house changing, and she's naked. She's freaking naked, and you can see her through the window, and just the way he like describes her body, like not like she's a person, but like I don't know, it was weird, and it like really creeped me out, and I was like, I'm not okay with this. This book was published, I think, in the 90s. The book was originally published in the 90s, so I also don't know if this is kind of because of the time it was written, and you know, standards are kind of different than what they are now. But also, like, they just chose really random times to have sex. Like, I was just like, this is coming out of left field. Like, you're gonna die, and you're like gonna, like, literally there is one scene where they're trying to track Max down in the mountains, and so like they're hiking, they're camping out trying to find her because she's injured, and you know, Franny's a vet, so she wants to fix her up, and they couldn't find her. They lost their trail, and they're camping out, and all of a sudden they're getting fucking ready to have sex, and of course Max is like sitting up in the tree like watching them, like, what's going on? What are they doing? And I'm like, oh my god, Like, you're trying to do this important thing and you're gonna have sex now. And then there's another part where they get kidnapped and they're like thrown in a cell. And they're like, well, we're gonna be killed in the morning, you know. The best way to spend our last night alive is to have sex. Like, really? Having sex would be the last thing on my mind if I was in that position. Another thing that really annoyed me about this is the way this book is written. It's written in both first and third person. So we get Franny's first person view, how she's feeling about everything that's going on, but then literally everything else is told in third person when we're talking about Kit, when we're talking about the flock, when we're talking about like all these other things going on. It's all in third person, and it was really confusing. And I don't know if that's partly because James Patterson writes in such short chapters that like flipping between those viewpoints was really hard to like keep track of in audiobook form. Was it just the audiobook? Is it the book? Like, I don't know. I just didn't really like it, and it like kind of like threw me out every time we would switch like the POV. Like, pick one fucking POV, man. This book probably would have worked better if it was all just in third person. There was one thing I liked about this. The way that Max is described when we finally, like, Franny finally gets a hold of her and is looking at her. She is described as she has more telltales of avian DNA than I remember there being described in Maximum Ride, but maybe that's just because the stories are told for Max and, like, you know, that's her body and she just thinks it's normal. But, you know, she has the feathers, or she has the wings, but she also has feathers, like, I think on the back of her neck, down, and, like, on the backs of her legs to kind of use as a tail when she's flying, which I thought was really cool. And she's also, I can't remember the specific term, but she can't give birth to live children. She will lay eggs, which I also thought was really interesting. But that's pretty much like the only thing I enjoyed about this book. I ended up rating it 2 stars. Next, I read volume 1 of Saga again. This was my 3rd time reading this series, and I love it because I just recently bought volume 7, so I'm going back and rereading all of them, and I'm also going to buy volume 8 since it's already out and get caught up. I don't feel like I should talk about this anymore because, like, everybody talks about Saga, but it's so good. If you want to get into graphic novels or you're just looking for a new graphic novel and you haven't read this yet, I highly recommend it. I, again, rated this 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Dumplin' by Julie Murphy. I actually got to meet Julie Murphy at North Texas Teen Book Festival. Here is a picture of the 2 of us. She is a very awesome person, and I'm so glad I read this book. I just read it, like, I listened to it in audiobook because I already own the physical copy, which I don't have because I lent it out to my friend, my nice, new, personalized signed edition. Cheyenne, I swear to God, if you read my book, I'm gonna kill you. But, she's just, like, I read it because it was available on the Overdrive app, and I was like, well, I really have only read one thing from an author, but then I forgot Holly Black was gonna be there, so, like, I also have read that, but I was like, I feel like I need to read something else from another author that, like, you know, is gonna be there. So I listened to it, and I was like, I've heard good things, the sequel's coming out. Holy cow, I love this book so much. First off, I love the audiobook. I loved it. This book is so Texas, and, like, I didn't realize it was missing in my life, but, like, I need more books set in Texas because I love it. Like, just everything. I was like, yes. And then even around homecoming, they talked about moms, and I was like, freaking yes. And I mean, I know everybody who's watching this that is not from Texas, like, has no idea what I'm talking about, but, like, just Google, like, homecoming moms. It's like this fake carnation with ribbons that we decorate for homecoming. It's outrageous and it's crazy, but, like, it's a tradition and I love it, and it's just, it's so much fun. Like, I honestly love this. Willow Dean, our main character, is obviously not a very, I don't want to say she's unlikable, but, like, she's not the best character, but that's kind of what I enjoyed about it, is she wasn't exactly like every other character I've read. She's struggling with her own problems, and she was, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, she was selfish more about her own problems than what was going on with other people, and I kind of like that because I'm like, aren't we all kind of like that in our own way? We'd rather, you know, focus on our own problems and, like, wallow in our own pity of what's going on rather than, like, everybody else's problems that were going on. I don't know, I really like this book. I know I've heard some people say they didn't like it, but I honestly really love this. There's also fat rep in here, which I've heard a lot of people like. So this book, basically, the way it's been described to me, we follow our main character, Willow Dean, who is a plus-sized girl. Her mother is the notorious she won the town's pageant in like 97 or something like that. And yeah, so her mom runs this pageant every year, and you know, finally Willow decides she's gonna enter in, and not to win, just to like kind of spite everybody and be like, I mean, I can do it too. And she kind of sparks off her own revolution of other girls who don't quite fit in with the standard pageant girl stereotype, which I really loved. But another thing I really enjoyed about this book, I thought it was just about her entering in the pageant just to kind of say a big F you to everybody who was like, well, you can't do that because you don't fit the stereotype. But this book is so much more than that too. Like, her aunt has just passed away, and we also get to watch her struggling through losing her aunt, who was essentially more like a mother to her than her actual mother was, and dealing with that, and her mother cleaning out her room and getting rid of her things, and just like the fact that her aunt was also a fat person. She at the end didn't even leave the house. I think she weighed in over 400 pounds is what they said. And Willow just talks about, like, she's like, I don't want to get like that. And like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed that. And I liked that this wasn't one of those books where the main character is fat and they decide to like lose weight and like work out and be like super tiny and skinny like the Puppy Girls. Like, she was like, no, I'm fat and I'm proud and I'm like not gonna change myself for that. There's like a scene when she is trying on her pageant dress with her mother, and it's a little snug. Like, it's not like super tight, but it's a little snugger than it should be. But like, I mean, sometimes we want that. We want it just a little snug to kind of show off our bodies, right? And her mother makes the comment like, something I thought you would have like tried to like fit into, like lose some weight before now. And she's like, why? Like, there's no point in doing that. And I don't know, I just found it really refreshing, and I really like this. And this book was so much more than just her entering this pageant. I really love this book, and I think everybody should read it. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I finally finished A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. I've read this way faster than I read Game of Thrones. It took me almost an entire year to read Game of Thrones. But I listened to this majority of audiobook, and I would highly recommend the audiobook. I love the guy that did the audiobook. It was just so good. And holy crap, shit is going down, and all I'm saying is somebody needs to take out the inbred bastard, okay? Like, he's just fucking shit up, and I can't handle it. And there's also like one plot point that like I'm still kind of confused on whether these two characters actually died, because they said they died and they sent out messages to the rest of the family that they were dead, but then there's like a chapter towards the end where they were still alive, and I'm hella confused. I think it was a dream, but I'm not sure. But I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. One thing I have to say that I really enjoy about the Song of Fire and Ice series is that this is a high fantasy series. But in the first book, there's really not any magic at all. It's just kind of set in like a medieval type of world. And the only like kind of magic that we get is at the very end when we get the dragons. And this book kind of steps into more magic. We actually get witches and like sorcerers and stuff, and like dark magic and then wild magic and just like a whole bunch of other shit. And I am so here for that. Like, I'm excited to see this magic like pump up in the next book. I think I'm gonna wait a little while before I start A Sword of Storms, which is the next book. But I am highly enjoying the series, and I think now I'm gonna start watching the TV show with my roommate because she really wants to watch it. And the last book I read was The Lake House by James Patterson. This is the sequel to Where the Wind Blows. I also listened to this on audiobook. This is also borrowed from my mother. My thoughts on The Lake House. I feel like I actually enjoyed this book better than When the Wind Blows, but like at the same time, I feel like this didn't need to happen, because we got a happy ending at the end of When the Wind Blows that like I didn't feel like we needed to continue on, but like I see why, because we wanted to see how the adjustment went with the children and their biological parents. But like at the same time, like I didn't feel like this was needed. And then there's a whole nother plot of another institution doing crazy fucked up stuff with human genetics. And yeah, I don't know. And this is the same thing that When the Wind Blows does, where we get first person Franny's view and then everything else is in third person. And like, again, I was just like, why are you doing this to me? Like, stop. again, I don't know if it's just because I was listening to an audiobook or like just because the chapters were short that like had issues like accustoming to like the different points of views. Like, I don't freaking know. It just kept throwing me off. Also, the oldest members of the flock, Max and Oz, are like 12, and I know their aging is a bit different compared to human years because they are part avian, but like they have sex and they're 12, and I have a really big problem with this. Like I don't know if I'm okay with this or not, because I'm like, but they're 12, but technically they're like older, like in bird years or something like that, and it's the way it's explained, and I'm just like, but like I still don't feel okay with this. Like, what I don't know. I didn't feel like this book needed to happen, and then I don't know, I don't know how I feel about this still. Like, I still enjoyed it more than When the Wind Blows, but like at the same time I was like, this didn't happen. So I rated this 2.5 out of 5 stars. I'm beginning to think maybe James Patterson just isn't for me, or maybe it was just the series, but like this is like giving me really, really low hopes for rereading Maximum Ride, and I'm really scared. And now on to the books that I'm currently in the middle of, which is 5 books, like I already mentioned, because I have a problem. So the first book I am still in the middle of is Map to the Stars by Jen Malone. It's a really cute, fluffy contemporary with travel and a movie star and a small town girl, and I'm very much enjoying it. Next I have The Kindness of Enemies by Lila Abelila. I don't know, I'm sorry, I know I just butchered that name. This is also another book that is required reading for my class that I'm supposed to have done by now, but I've only read 122 pages. I'm enjoying this a lot actually, but like I'm kind of like, do I want to finish it or do I want to just go ahead and DNF it? I don't know. This story takes place on 2 timelines. There's a current one in 2010 following a college professor. One of her students has been arrested, and some of that stuff, as well as the student's family is apparently descended from Shamal Imin, who was like a great leader of, I don't want to say Muslim because I don't think that's right, but like Arabic army during the Caucasus Wars. So yeah, and this professor is she's part Muslim, so she's also done a lot of research on this particular figure in history, and so she's very interested, and so there's like a lot of that going on. And then the second story strand takes place during the Caucasus Wars, which is like 1850s, I think, and we follow Shamal himself and his people, the kidnapping of Jordan Princess Anna and her children, and then the Russians took Shamal's son, and he is trying to ransom them to get his son back. And so there's that whole storyline going on. Honestly, I could totally do without the modern timeline. I just really don't like it, and it's boring. I much more prefer the historical timeline to this, and I'm very much enjoying it. That's why I'm kind of like, do I want to finish it, or do I just like want to not? I haven't decided yet. I might not. It depends how I'm feeling once the semester's over, because it's finals week right now and I'm dying. Next, I am still in the middle of Take Me There by Caroline Dean. Still have read not anything from this month. This is a contemporary following our main character Dylan, who is driving from California to Texas to visit his father, who is in prison. And yeah, they're also on the run from something else, and they have bad boy past. And Texas. I had no idea this was going to be set in Texas when I picked it up, but like it just made me so much more like excited and like happy to continue with this. I just haven't gotten back around to reading it yet. Like I'm enjoying it a lot, and there's also poetry and letters and stuff from his father sprinkled throughout, which I'm very much like it. I think it really adds to the story. The next book I'm in the middle of, which you can't see because I forgot to put the dust jacket back on, is The Beauty That Remains by Ashley Woodfolk. This book recently released as well. I bought it off of Amazon because I saw Rhiannon over at Crescent Moon Reads talking about this book. She got an ARC from work and said there was Panic Attack rep in here, which I was like, got me really interested because I have had quite a few panic attacks. They're not as bad as they used to be when I was younger, but I had one a couple months ago actually, and I'm interested to see how that goes. This book I really should be saving for Sobathon, but like I was at North Teen Texas North Texas Teen Book Festival, and I needed to read, so I started reading this one because I wanted to read it. But yeah. Oh, I also got it personalized to me. I'm so excited. And this book, we follow 3 main characters who are from different backgrounds within this particular city, and they're all connected by music in different ways from this particular band. They've also all lost a loved one, whether it be a family member, a significant other, or something else. And it's just kind of them dealing with that loss and learning to move on. I was like, literally, the first scene is a funeral, and like I was like tearing up, and I was like, oh my god. And like I went and I told her Ashley this when like I met her, and she's like, I know. She's like, but it's gonna break your heart, but then it's gonna put it all together by the end. And I was like, I'm so excited to read this. So I've read 56 pages and I'm really loving it so far, like honestly, but I feel like this is also a book I kind of need to like take my time with reading and like soak in. But like this is gonna be a good book, I can already tell. And the last book I am in the middle of reading is Illumini by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I have had this book since it came out, I think. Roughly around there, Amazon was like doing a deal or something, so I bought it because I really like the cover. I don't have my Just Jacket on this edition. But I bought this at the same time I bought Dumpling, actually. So like, I'm reading 2 books I bought together in the same month. Interesting. I was planning on actually saving this because there's going to be a sci-fi readathon at some point this summer. And I do own quite a lot of sci-fi, but I don't read a lot of sci-fi. So I was planning on saving those sci-fi books for that readathon and try to power through my sci-fi. But then I was on the Overdrive app because I finished that horrible book, The Lake House, and decided I still need an audiobook. Surprise, surprise, like I actually have 2 libraries on my Overdrive. I have the library from my hometown, and I have the library for here in Oklahoma. And there is always like an outrageously long wait for the Illumini audiobooks that I'm just kind of like, I might as well just physically read it instead of try to listen to the audiobook, even though everybody says the audiobook is amazing. And I was just browsing and Illumini was available, and I was like, I'm snatching that hoe up. Like, heck yes. So I did. And I haven't physically read any of it because I've been listening to it walking to and from class. But once the semester's over, I think I'm going to listen to the audio and like follow along in the book since it is mixed media format. And I think that's a good way to get through it. And I've listened to 147 pages. I'm really enjoying this. I see why a lot of people say they love the audiobook for this. I highly recommend listening to the audiobook if you can, because it's so great. Anyways, that is it for this wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys tag along with us for the Sobathon. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, let me know down below if you've read any of these books, what you thought. Do you agree with my opinions? Do you not? Is anybody else not really a fan of James Patterson? Because I'm feeling like he's just not for me. Like, no thank you. But yeah, so that's going to be it. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Until then, I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!